What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with another preview video. This is actually going to be a redo of a video that I've already made because this is going to be Georgia versus Fiji. It's going ahead. It's going to be great. This is the game I'm looking forward to most this weekend. It's game one. Let's kick off and let's check out the teams. Alrighty, Abzanzadze is going to get us kicked off here. So like I just said at the intro there, guys, this video has actually already been made. I made this video about 5 days ago because I just assumed this game was going to get called off and cancelled, as all of Fiji's games had. So I did a sort of short video just going through on my thoughts and feelings on how well the Georgian team had done and how much of a shame it was that we didn't get to see the Fiji team, and now that video is worthless. Amazingly, this game is actually going ahead. The teams have officially been announced today. There is no real sort of view that this game could actually be cancelled and that Fiji are going to be playing. So, I mean, I'm very grateful this game's going to be going ahead because this is without a doubt the game I'm looking forward to most this weekend. I think really as you go through the games, this is going to be the most exciting one. This is the one where both teams have the most to prove, the most to gain from trying to show up at this tournament. I think Wales-Italy will probably just be a Wales win. I think they'll both put on sort of more inexperienced teams and it'll be a bit of just throwing the ball about a bit. I imagine that the Ireland versus Scotland game will be one of the most boring games ever because everyone will be too scared to lose. There'll probably be an unbelievable amount of kicking and no one really trying to run the ball an awful lot. And I imagine that the England-France game, I sort of believe is probably going to be a bit of a walkover and probably won't be that much fun to watch unless, of course, the new France team shows up. So this game for me is going to be the game of the weekend and I'm so glad it's going ahead. So let's start talking about Georgia, seeing as we're playing as them. Georgia have actually had a very good tournament, all things considered. They did turn up. They haven't actually conceded by a great deal of points. They didn't have the best first game against England. They managed to hold Wales to 18 points conceded, and then they've come to Ireland and they come away with a try out of nowhere. One of the best work tries that I've seen for a while from a tier 2 nation, especially a team like Georgia who mainly push all their work through the forwards and not through the backs. To see a set play come off of them absolutely flawlessly between the centres, little pop pass and a fantastic run all the way down through everyone. People screaming, cheering that they managed to get that try like they'd actually won the game. Big blow for Ireland. I don't think Ireland turned up to that game at all. I had nothing that I was impressed of about that game. I will have already talked about that more in my Ireland versus Scotland video because I've had to make that one first, even though that's game 2, because I've had to redo this one. So let's have a look at the Georgian team. Not an enormous amount of changes. Again, this is going to be the sort of video that I apologise to everyone who is an enormous rugby fan. Me, as a above average international watcher, knows quite a few of the teams, but all the tier 2 nations. There's quite a few players that I'm not big followers of and don't really know a lot. So I was looking forward to this tournament to learn a lot more about the Georgian team and the Fijian team, and I would say I've learned a little bit about the Georgian team and not necessarily anything about the Fijians just because they haven't been able to play. So I'll chuck on screen for you guys super quick so you can see the Georgian team. We won't do a full breakdown like I normally do because obviously, like I said, I don't know everyone in this team, but a couple of standout names here. Mamukiashvili and Gigayashvili have been really solid. I know they seem to tire out about that 35-40 minute marker, but that's because the teams through this tournament have just been targeting them. I mean, normally teams go in against people like Georgia and they attempt to try and front up a little bit in the forwards and they play a fully backs game. Every team in this tournament so far, I think because they're against 3 tier 1 nations, they are struggling a little bit just because the teams are obviously trying to test their own forwards against such a forward dominant side like Georgia so they can get a better understanding of their team. So, but they've held up really well and they have actually given a lot of passion for these games. They have turned up every week and put up a good performance. One of the big names that will be missed, obviously, will be Gorgadze, who I don't know what he did to his leg. It looked like he twisted his knee in the Ireland game, so unfortunately he won't be. So it's a big ball carrier going to be gone for them. So they are replacing with Jalagonia. No idea really. I'm sure he's going to be good if he's been brought into this team, but they are going to be losing a big player there. Their backline actually isn't massively changed and actually have played relatively well considering. Lobjan, I'd say, is actually quite a decent scrum half and has been showing his kicking skill off a little bit, actually trying to get his team moving forward. Abzanzadze is actually good at kicking. We got to see it. People actually kicking from the tee, which is a nice showing off off for some Georgian kickers to actually be able to take kicks, and they've shown they have that ability because until now they've been nilled in both games. Tadua going on to the wing. Sharikadze, who is a really good player, actually. He doesn't really get a lot of credit, especially as a captain at number 12. There aren't a lot of teams that have a 12 as their captain. I know England do if they have Farrell on, but normally Farrell would be his 10. He moves to 12 when they have George Ford on, which actually Farrell's played a lot of 10 recently. So it's quite nice to see a 12 actually taking care of captaincy and has passion, really screaming and cheering players on. He's in the middle of scrums. He's talking to refs. He's trying to get a better understanding of what they want to see from them. And I think that's a great way to do captaincy. And then, of course, Matiashvili at the back of that 15 is one of their biggest counter runners. And I was actually been very, very impressed with him so far in the tournament. In terms of the bench, there's a whole bunch of new names there that even I don't know a great deal of from seeing the games. Tepladze, I think played in the Scotland game. I could be wrong there, but I think if he's the guy I'm thinking of, I think he had quite a good game. And then Aprazidze, of course, will come on at the scrum half. Who, I mean, the choices at 9 for Georgia are actually really good. Both 9s are really settled in their game and are actually quite impressive. And I think it's going to be really nice to see this Georgia team develop as we get closer to the next World Cup. I don't think they've had the best tournament, but I think they've got a lot of positives to come away with. The fact that they aren't losing these games, 40-50-0 consistently. They are able to defend very strongly. They've obviously done a lot of work on their defence leading up to this tournament, and they've tried showing it. The game they had against Scotland, I did feel like they were going to be let down massively coming into this tournament. They were just going to get run over, and I know a lot of people will look at it as saying they didn't score any points in the first 2 games. They had the opportunity to score points, but Georgia are one of these teams. They're not going to just go for their threes when they can do. You're not seeing anyone in this team going for drop goals just for the sake of it. You're not seeing them even in the first 10 minutes of the game. If they get a penalty in their opponent's half, they're not taking 3. They're going for the tries. They're a show-off team that are trying to make their way in the world of rugby, trying to get those tries, trying to invigorate their nation a little bit into the world of rugby, and I think that's great. I don't think we see it enough anymore. I think far too much, especially in Northern Hemisphere, especially, I would say Northern Hemisphere Tier 1 rugby is so much based around trying to get penalties constantly, and instead not going for tries, not trying to do anything clever. It's just keep going through the forwards, pick and drive until someone gives away a penalty for an offside, and then take 3. And when you've got players as good as Farrell and Bigger and Sexton, the kicking ratio is about 95% success, so why not take those free 3 points? But it's nice to see Georgia having a good tournament really on the whole, and I'm going to really look forward to see them play this Fiji team. Fiji are, of course, obviously big boys, but they, compared to Georgia, probably don't have the forward capability that Georgia do, whereas I'd say the Fijians probably have better backs than the Georgians do. So let's go on and take a look at this Fijian team that's going to be coming into this game. And before we kick off into this team straight away, I will first of all apologise for the graphic that I'm about to put on screen. Fiji haven't actually released any sort of special graphic or any sort of social media as to the team they've actually released. This is where I normally get my images from to put on screen as a bit of a more interesting visual. This is something I made in about 10 minutes, and it is basically just a big square full of words of the players' names. I did add a little logo in, but I'll chuck on screen for you guys who can see this Fijian team all in sort of one go. So there's a couple of big names in here. Actually, the Fijians have not taken this half-heartedly. This is going to be their only game of the tournament. This, of course, is going to be some players that I don't know either. I was looking forward to learning a bit more about some of the Fijian players going through this tournament, and I don't think I'm going to get the greatest chance to do that, so let's hope they have one good game in this one. But a couple of players that do stand out. Matavesi, I think has been with Fiji for a little while now. It'd be nice to see him. Further down the line, you've got Ben Volavola, who actually played quite well in the World Cup, and of course Fiji won't be happy with that game they had against Uruguay in the World Cup, but Ben Volavola is actually a very good player. Further down, of course, Semi Randrada, the man who, I don't know if he started the whole COVID thing in their team, but he seemed to be the biggest name surrounding it. I know a couple of people had it. And Tuisova there on the right wing. I mean, there's a couple of big names in this Fijian team, and like I said, in my opinion, the Fijian team is, although they are probably more forward dominant with a lot of their big players than, say, other players, if you compare them to the likes of, maybe Japan, these definitely have a heavier forward pack. But I think if you compare them to Georgia, I think Georgia definitely have the stronger forwards going into this. So I think Fijians, you're going to be expecting them to see a big backline play. Of course, they are known as the Flying Fijians. They are doing well in the sevens. They are doing well in just about every form of rugby. It's a big running game for them, and I imagine some of these boys in the backline will want to be showing off. In terms of the bench, there isn't actually any names on that bench that really stand out to me as names. Like I say, unfortunately, I don't get to follow enough Fijian rugby. It would have been nice to see him do a little bit more in the World Cup, maybe even try and fought their way through to get into the quarterfinals, but unfortunately they weren't able to do it against Uruguay, which of course was a huge win for them. But this tournament again has just been taken away from them due to COVID, which was an awful shame. I was really looking forward to seeing some of this, and of course it does open up a whole new range of things for them. They'll get to play their tier 2 nations, which I'm sure is not what they wanted. They wanted the likes of France and Scotland. You know, one game I was really looking forward to this year was going to be Fiji versus Italy. I really wanted to know how that was going to work. I would say Italy, out of all the tier 1 nations, are probably the lowest ranking tier 1 nation, and Fiji are probably up there. Maybe they're still under Japan realistically, but they're up there as one of the highest tier 2 nations, and I think that would have been a really nice toss-up just to see the depth in the squad and see whether they could actually look to take on a team like that. We never really get to see it, especially in World Cups, never end super favourably in that you always end up having a Fiji versus New Zealand or something, which it just feels a little bit unfair to them. But I'm really looking forward to see this game. In terms of prediction, I genuinely think this could go either way. I actually think for the way Fiji play is a lot more conservative based, whereas the Georgians like to try and go for those tries and the big points. I can see Fiji actually taking this game. I know it's their first game and they've got a lot to try and prove, and their team won't have gelled together as much as probably some of the other teams will have due to lack of playing time on the field. But I actually think the amount of attackers they have, along with that they do actually have a decent forward pack. From what we've seen so far of Georgia being able to tire quite early in the game, I think Fiji will want to try and exploit that a bit. So I'm going to say Fiji to win this, and I actually think this could end up being a bit of a point scoring mayhem game. I think both teams have the opportunity to score some decent points, so I think it'll actually be a relatively decent score. I think both teams might end up getting close to that 20-point marker. I'm going to say Fiji to win. I'm going to say Fiji to win by 15 is going to be my prediction for this game. But I cannot wait for it. It's going to be my favourite game of this week. I'm absolutely certain of that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who's going to win in your opinion? Make sure you leave this video a like and make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all of our rugby content. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.